Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly through the moonlit corridors of Tang Dynasty China, tiptoeing past ornate screens and whispering courtyards, just to sneak a letter. A letter not meant to exist. You're a mail courier, but not the boring kind. You, my friend, are a specialist in illicit love letters. The kind of correspondence that would scandalize a courtier, make a Confucian scholar clutch his pearls, and possibly get you demoted to goat duty in the hinterlands. You crouch low behind a carved jade planter, heart thumping like a war drum, though no one's at war yet. Above you, a paper lantern swings slightly in the breeze, casting long shadows across the polished tiles. You pause, breathe in the aroma of steamed lotus buns from the kitchen wing, and then dart forward, silent as a cat with excellent moral flexibility. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it right now in your part of the world? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in the inner courtyard of a minor official's residence, somewhere along the eastern stretches of the Grand Canal. It's late. The rest of the household is asleep, except for one figure peeking through a silk curtain on the second floor. She gives a nod. You give a slight bow. It's all very theatrical, but you're both committed to the bit. She drops the letter wrapped in silk. It floats like a feather. You catch it, smooth. This isn't your first rodeo. This one's written on bamboo paper, dyed a soft apricot and scented with something floral, maybe peony. The calligraphy's dainty, full of brush strokes, that curl like willow branches. She's good. She's very good. But you're not here to judge handwriting. You're here to ride. You slip the letter into your inner sleeve, where it nestles beside two other messages. One for a rice merchant's mistress, and another suspiciously long scroll addressed to the noble bachelor of Lotus Pavilion from someone named Cloudy Peach. You do not ask questions, you do not read. Well, you mostly don't read. Historians still argue whether couriers actually pried open the letters they carried. Officially, it was forbidden under Tang law. Unofficially, when you're stuck at a relay station for 4 days waiting for your next horse, and there's nothing to read but millet inventories and a moldy copy of the Book of Rights, curiosity wins. You tuck the sleeve shut and glance up once more. She's gone. Curtain drawn, lights out. You slink past a dozing gatekeeper and into the humid night. The air smells like damp earth and sweet osmanthus. You move quietly to the small stable behind the tea house where your horse is waiting. Well, horse is a generous term. He's a shaggy, stout fellow with the energy of a tired math teacher and a fondness for chewing wood. But he's reliable. He's the reason half the letters in this region still arrive before the ink fades. You pat his flank, untie the reins, and start packing your things into the worn saddlebag, a flask of salted plum water, a bag of sweet beans. Your official courier. Token. Carved from lacquered wood with the seal of the imperial post. You double-check the hidden pocket for bribes, just in case. As the rooster crows somewhere off in the distance, a little too early if you ask your horse, you swing into the saddle. You wear no armor, just simple robes, sturdy boots, and a deep-seated sense that today might be weird. You're not wrong. The roads of Tang China aren't always roads. Sometimes they're muddy paths that meander through rice paddies. Sometimes they're riverbanks packed with ducks. Sometimes they're just guesses. You nudge your horse forward, heading northeast toward the first courier station. The nearest relay post is only 20 li away, about 7 miles. But even a short stretch can take hours if the oxen carts have churned the path into pudding. You pass by the first signs of dawn, smoke curling from kitchen huts, dogs barking. Sleepily at nothing, a vendor already frying youtiao in a sizzling wok. You think about stopping, but you've got a schedule to keep. The Tang Postal Service waits for no one. not even for fresh crullers. The Tang Dynasty was famous for many things, poetry, printing, and really confusing family trees, but one of its most underrated marvels was the efficiency of its courier network. Over 1,600 relay stations dotted the empire, connecting distant provinces to the beating heart of Chang'an. Horses, mules, and foot couriers carried everything from royal edicts to, yes, forbidden poems folded into scented envelopes. Each station had its own quirks. Some served only palace runners. Others doubled as inns with spicy fish stew and stiff beds made of heated stone. You never knew what you were going to get. As you pass a carved stone marker noting the county line, you hear a nightingale chirp from a bamboo thicket. You respond with a whistle, 2 short, 1 long. It's a signal among couriers. Code for all clear, road ahead, empty, no border patrols, and possibly, just possibly, a vendor ahead selling meat pies. Your horse perks up. He remembers the meat pies. It's going to be a long ride, and you've only just begun. The air grows cooler as you urge your horse into a gentle trot, the rhythmic clop of hooves mingling with the distant sounds of morning, rustling reeds, the soft creak of wooden carts being loaded, a faraway cough from a farmer clearing his throat over a bowl of congee. Your destination, for now, is a relay station nestled in a low valley between 2 sleepy hills, Xiang Gate Post. One of many modest courier stops scattered like breadcrumb trails across the Tang Empire. It's not glamorous. No lacquered rooftops or carved dragons here. Just a worn courtyard, a few stables, and a building with more smoke stains than decorative appeal. But the tea is hot. The fire's always lit, and if you're lucky, someone might have pickled turnips to share. You arrive just after sunrise. The station keeper, a plump man with an alarming mustache and no visible eyebrows, greets you with a yawn so wide you can see what he had for breakfast. He waves you in, already counting the horses with a bamboo tally stick, not bothering with small talk. Efficiency over pleasantries, such is the way of the Tang courier. You hand him your token. He squints at it, flips it over, sniffs it for reasons best not questioned, and nods. Approved. Inside, the place smells like horse sweat and overboiled ginger tea. You settle in a corner while an apprentice preps a fresh mount for you. Yours gets an hour of oats and rest. It's a good system, unless you're the horse. While you wait, another courier stumbles in from the west route. You recognize him. Broad. Shoulders, bad haircut, an ongoing feud with boiled eggs. His name is Liang, and he once claimed a fox spirit tried to marry him during a rainstorm. You believe him, mostly because he's too bad a liar to invent something that specific. He flops down beside you with the energy of a man betrayed by stares. You both exchange nods. No words. Just the universal courier greeting. A slow, mutual eye roll and shared. Leg cramp empathy. Over lukewarm tea, Liang offers you something wrapped in oiled paper. It's a dried lotus root snack. Tough as old boots, but oddly satisfying. You munch in silence. Then he leans in and whispers, "Did you hear about the silk official's wife?" You raise an eyebrow. Here it comes. 2 couriers intercepted, he says, chewing with his mouth open. Both carrying poems. Same address, different senders. You snort. Typical. Historians still argue whether these kinds of gossip networks among Tang couriers actually existed, or whether modern historians are simply projecting too much modern flair onto a group of dusty postal workers. But between the folk songs and recovered notes scribbled in courier code, there's a good chance the imperial mail system was also the empire's juiciest grapevine. Your new horse arrives. A smaller, speedier beast with ears that twitch like it's eavesdropping. On your thoughts, you thank the apprentice, adjust your saddle, and give Liang a 2-finger salute before heading back to the open road. The sky is fully lit now, painted in soft pastels. Clouds drift lazily above the distant mountains, and rice fields glisten with dew. You pass a group of farmers bent over rows of green shoots, hats wide as parasols, voices humming a rhythmic song as they work. You cross a small wooden bridge over a stream so clear you can see the lazy fish below, hovering like suspended. Commas in a watery sentence. You pause just a moment to let your horse drink. He slurps with noisy enthusiasm. It's undignified, but you let it slide. In the distance, a Buddhist monastery bell tolls. 3 slow chimes. You're on time. The path ahead splits. One fork leads toward a river crossing, notorious for its temperamental ferryman. The other cuts through a plum orchard whose owner may or may not have set traps for wandering deer, or once, a courier with a snack pouch that looked suspiciously edible. You choose the orchard. The air there is cooler, scented with sweet, overripe plums and the faint metallic tang of anticipation. Your horse crunches a fallen fruit and immediately regrets it. You pat his mane in consolation. We've all eaten. Something we shouldn't at least once, haven't we? As you ride, you spot something wedged in a branch. A red ribbon, frayed at the edges, tied carefully in a knot. It's a courier mark. Someone left a message. You dismount, climb up, and unfasten the ribbon. Inside is a note scrawled on thin parchment. East wind steady. Ferry flooded. Avoid Yang crossing. Tell Foxface I owe 2 dumplings. You chuckle. It's from Yingzi, a southern rider with a mischievous streak and a disturbingly accurate throwing arm. You tuck the note into your pouch and remount. The relay network is more than stables and timetables. It's people. Tired, underpaid, overworked people who carry not just orders and taxes, but hopes, confessions, schemes, and yes, love. Letters. They ride through blizzards, bandit territory, and the occasional freak goose migration. They navigate bureaucracies thicker than a Tang poem anthology and still find time to exchange riddles written on fish skins just for fun. You reach the edge of the orchard as the sun climbs higher, casting long shadows across the fields. Your next stop is 25 Line North. Plenty of time to think. Maybe about that note, or maybe about your favorite fried turnip stand just a few posts ahead. Either way, the road calls. And your horse, despite his earlier fruit-based regret, trots forward with surprising gusto. Your horse's hooves clip-clop in a steady rhythm, a sound that has, by now, become a kind of lullaby. You're just past the midday mark, the sun now climbing high enough to demand shade from anything, hat, sleeve, or sheer stubbornness. The path begins to shift beneath you. The familiar trodden dirt gives way to gravel, then packed clay, and finally, an actual cobbled lane. That's how you know you're approaching the relay post at Shanyin. It's one of the Empire's model posts, refurbished by some zealous administrator eager to impress the Ministry of Works. Everything here is a little too clean, a little too polished. Even the stables smell less like hay and more like lemon balm and bureaucracy. But you're not here to judge interior decorating. You're here to swap horses and deliver messages. A stable boy takes your reins with practiced efficiency, scribbles something on a bamboo slip, and points toward the main house. You nod, slipping past a group of low-ranking officials loudly arguing over the best calligraphy ink. Spoiler, there's no winner. They're just shouting in different tones of smug. You step into the cool corridor of the post house and immediately find your favorite part, the kitchen window. It's a tiny square, cut into the back wall where travelers can request tea, food, and the occasional unsolicited life advice. Today, it's run by Auntie Moo, a wiry old woman who could probably kill a man with a bamboo skewer and once beat a tax collector at arm wrestling. She peers at you through squinty eyes. You again? Still look like you haven't eaten. You grin. Still look like you haven't stopped feeding people. She snorts, disappears for a moment, and returns with a bowl of steaming red bean porridge and a half-salted egg. You thank her, and she waves you off like you're a stray dog that keeps stealing her heart. As you eat, you pull out the first of your messages for inspection. Not to read, of course, just to double-check that nothing's smudged or leaking. Scented oil onto the others. That happened once with a love note written in crushed magnolia blossom ink. It took 2 weeks for your bag to stop smelling like a perfumery run by confused bees. This one is addressed to a young woman in Lin-On. No surname, just the poetic pseudonym Snow Beneath the Willow. Classic. The poem inside begins with a line about the moon licking the lake's spine. You wince. Not the worst metaphor you've seen, but close. Historians still debate whether such letters were truly as florid and metaphor-heavy as the surviving examples suggest, or if the more awkward ones simply didn't survive because the recipients burned them out of second-hand embarrassment. Either way, you pack it back carefully, finishing the last spoonfuls of porridge as you go. Your new horse is waiting, a tall, lean bay mare with a disapproving stare. You mount up, offer a nod of thanks to Auntie Moo, who pretends not to care, and set off once again. Now you're on the secret road. That's not its real name, of course. Officially, it's the third branch of the Southern Imperial Route. But among couriers, it's called the Secret Road because of its sheer usefulness in dodging tolls, outrunning officials, and generally getting places faster than you're supposed to. It's winding, tree-lined, and dotted with exactly 0 checkpoints. You love it. As you ride, the canopy closes above you, dappling the path in sunlight and shadow. Bamboo clatters softly in the wind. Somewhere, a cuckoo sings. Your mare snorts, adjusts her pace. Even she knows this stretch is sacred. The road curves past a sleepy village with a market square made entirely of woven mats. No stalls, no bricks, just people sitting cross-legged with baskets full of garlic, ginger, and pickled whatever. Children dart between them, giggling. A woman waves at you from behind a stack of cabbage. You wave back. She probably thinks you're someone else. At the edge of the market, a traveling musician plays a 2-stringed erhu. The melody floats through the air like a kite on a lazy breeze. For a moment, the road, the sun, the music, it all syncs up. You're not just a courier. You're a thread in the Tang tapestry, weaving time and love and ink together across provinces, and then you see it. The next post station. Small, wooden, moss growing along the roof. No fancy cobbles here, just honest, muddy hospitality. You. Dismount, rub your horse's neck, and lead her to the trough. The station keeper here is named Dao. He's young, sleepy-eyed, and always has ink on his hands. You suspect he writes poetry, but is too embarrassed to admit it. He nods as you hand over the love letter for Snow Beneath the Willow. He recognizes the address, smirks slightly. 4th one this month, he mutters. You laugh. Same. Sender? Different. All terrible, you shrug. She must be popular. Dao tucks the letter into a side pouch and gives you a fresh mount, short, stocky, and eager. You climb on, ready to ride again. Your next leg is longer, 40 li to, the eastern border. But the road is flat, the wind is cool, and the letters in your sleeve rustle softly like paper secrets. The mare beneath you trots with the confidence of someone who has no time for nonsense. You admire her spirit. Her name, according to the tag tied to her saddle, is Bean Curd. You decide not to question it. The road stretches out ahead, flanked by low hills and the occasional stand of poplars swaying like overworked courtiers. The wind at your back carries the scent of wild ginger and distant hearth smoke, and your sleeves flutter like a scholar's robe in a breeze of ideas. This next leg of the journey, from the relay post to the foothills near Yong'an, follows. One of the quieter arteries of the Imperial Courier Network. Quieter in theory, but you've already passed a group of monks arguing about tea temperature and a pair of government accountants deep in a debate about whether fish sauce counts as a deductible expense. Your next destination is the relay station at Peach Hollow, a name that sounds far more romantic than the reality. Still, it's where you'll rest before heading into the more challenging mountain passes, where horses slip and letters get soggy if you're not careful. As you ride, you fiddle absent-mindedly with your courier sash. It's a woven band of indigo and tan, the colors signifying your route status. Tier 2, long distance but not imperial priority. Tier 1 couriers wear red and gold sashes and ride with the speed of gossip and the threat of demotion. You, meanwhile, deliver poetry and pickled duck orders. But your sash also contains something more important than status, the bamboo code stick. It's hollow, lightweight, and carries carved slats of wood, each etched with courier shorthand. These little codes save time, ink, and occasionally your reputation. You fish it out. Roll the slats between your fingers. One symbol means delayed by river. Another, recipient has moved to monastery, possibly to escape taxes. And another, marked with 3 tiny dots. Do not open, contains offensive verse. That one sees more use than you'd like. Historians still argue whether these coded systems were standardized or improvised. Some scholars believe each province had its own dialect of courier shorthand. Others think it was more personal, passed down like heirlooms from senior riders to green-footed newbies who hadn't yet learned how to dodge an angry goose with a satchel of wedding invitations. As you pass into a grove of wind-warped pines, a flicker of red catches your eye. You rein in. There, tied to a low branch, is a scrap of fabric, another courier signal. This one's different. Red and white striped, folded in a specific triangular knot. It means, Border Patrol ahead. Use Song Valley Trail, you sigh. Border patrols mean questions. Questions mean delays. And delays mean lingering in places where cats gnaw on your shoelaces out of boredom. You veer off the main road and slip into Song Valley, a shaded detour winding through ancient groves and moss-covered rocks. It's eerily quiet. Even your horse seems to notice, snorting gently as if asking, "Are we being followed by paperwork?" The trail narrows, overgrown with ferns and the occasional wayward chicken. Yes, there's a chicken, standing right in the middle of the path, staring at you with the quiet authority of a tax inspector. You urge Bean Curd forward gently, but she stops. The chicken refuses to yield. After a brief but tense standoff, you dismount, walk up, and nudge the bird with a respectful toe tap. It clucks, offended, and waddles into the bushes, presumably to file a complaint. You press on. At a bend in the trail, you pass a stone marker, half-crumbled, mossy, engraved with the character for spring. It's a relic of the old dynasty, before Tang. But the path still honors its memory. You take a moment to adjust your satchel and drink from your flask. Salted plum water, slightly sour, extremely refreshing. Unless you're expecting wine, in which case it's betrayal in a bottle. Further along, the trail opens up to reveal a low footbridge spanning a gentle creek. Here you dismount again. It's tradition among couriers to walk their horses across this bridge, not out of necessity, but out of superstition. A rider named Kun once fell in, letter pouch and all, and the message he carried, a marriage proposal, never reached its destination. The jilted party joined a monastery. A year later, the sender became a monk too. Now it's said that if you ride across the bridge, their spirits might sabotage your ink supply out of ghostly spite. You walk. Bean Curd follows. The bridge creaks, but holds. On the other side, the trail returns to soft clay, the type that preserves hoof prints like nature's own diary. You notice at least 2 other riders have passed here recently, one fast, one limping. Courier life. As the sun begins its lazy descent toward the west, you spot a structure nestled into the hillside. Peach Hollow Relay. Finally. It's modest, its walls draped in creeping ivy, its signboard weathered but legible. You stable Bean Curd and step into the main house. It smells like bamboo steamers and camphor wood, comforting and slightly medicinal. The postmaster, an elderly woman with a bun like a coiled rope, greets you with a nod and points you to a back room with sleeping mats. You strip off your gear, stretch your aching legs, and settle onto a straw-filled mattress that feels like sleeping on a sack of celery. But it's yours for tonight. As you close your eyes, the last thing you hear is the gentle thrum of crickets and the rustling sound of your letter pouch swaying gently in the corner. The messages inside rest easy, for now, morning at Peach Hollow creeps in gently, like a cat that doesn't want to startle you, but very much needs you to wake up and feed it. You blink into consciousness as the first gold of dawn pools through the bamboo shutters. There's a brief moment of confusion. Where am I? Whose straw mattress is this? Why does my shoulder feel like it's been gently chewed by a bureaucrat? And then it clicks. Ah, courier life. Day 5. You rise, stretch, and splash water on your face from a chipped ceramic basin filled with mountain runoff, cold enough to make your teeth question their life choices. The air smells faintly of pine, breakfast millet, and a hint of whatever potion the station master's been rubbing on her knees. Outside, bean curd, the horse is already awake, chewing on something unidentifiable with extreme focus. You saddle. Up, tighten the straps, and glance skyward. Clear. A good omen, or at least not a bad one. You set off again, following a narrow path that threads between the hills like ribbon on a ceremonial robe. Today's terrain is mostly farmland, terraced, fields carved into the slopes, small irrigation channels glinting in the light, and peasants waving lazily from afar. One gestures toward his donkey, which appears to have stolen a radish. You wave back sympathetically. Donkeys are like that. You're heading toward an old tea town known for its stubborn goats and even more stubborn postal clerks. Along the way, the scenery changes subtly. The trees grow taller, the air smells crisper, and the paths are dotted with tiny roadside shrines. Each one bears an offering, a tangerine, a coin, or in one case, what looks suspiciously like half a steamed bun. You pause, consider making an offering of your own, and instead murmur a quiet thanks. Couriers are nothing if not superstitious. You never know which deity handles ink smudges and safe travel. About an hour in, you hear the jingling of another rider's harness behind you. You turn and spot her, Shu Lan, a northern courier with twin braids and a laugh like cracked pepper. She pulls up beside you, her horse kicking up a lazy trail of dust. "You look terrible," she says cheerfully. "I've had worse nights," you reply. "Worse than Peach Hollow's mattress? I think I still have a straw splinter in my pancreas." You both laugh. It's comforting, this strange camaraderie between people who only ever meet mid-ride, mid-delivery, mid-chaos. You exchange quick news. Chang'an's market taxes are up again. A new poetry collection is making the rounds, and someone apparently rode all the way to Luoyang just to deliver a letter that turned out to be a recipe for fermented tofu. Historians still argue whether Tang couriers developed their own informal message-sharing network, but oral traditions, coded knots, and clever carvings suggest that something very much like social media existed, if your feed was made of saddlebags and side-eye. Shulan breaks off toward a western fork, waving as she goes. You continue east, climbing a gentle hill where tea shrubs grow in neat rows. You pass workers, mostly women, bending low to pluck the soft spring leaves, their wide hats swaying in unison like sea anemones in the tide. One of them smiles and offers you a leaf, still dewy. You chew it thoughtfully, bitter, green, grounding, perfect. Midway down the slope, you encounter a merchant cart stuck in the mud. The driver, a wiry man with a philosophical mustache, is arguing with the wheel like it personally offended him. You dismount, tie bean curd to a tree, and lend a hand. Between the two of you, and some very undignified grunting, you get the cart moving again. The man thanks you with a small parcel of dried apricots and a proverb. A wheel stuck in mud finds its strength in strangers. You nod, accept the apricots, and ponder whether that proverb was freshly invented just now. As you continue, your mind returns to the messages tucked safely in your sash pouch. There are 5 now. 1 sealed with wax shaped like a chrysanthemum. 1 decorated with gold flecks and absolutely too much perfume. 1, curiously, written on black paper with silver ink, an affectation of scholars who want their metaphors to glow in moonlight. And then there's the most recent addition, a short, unadorned note written on coarse hemp paper, addressed only with the characters for my shadow. That one gives you pause. Some messages are light-hearted, some are desperate, and some feel like they're wrapped in silence rather than parchment. Historians agree that letter writing in the Tang Dynasty wasn't just a hobby, it was a culture. From emperors to monks to chicken sellers with poetic flair, everyone wrote letters. Entire manuals were dedicated to proper phrasing. There were even ghostwriters, professional scribes paid to make your heartbreak sound elegant. Love letters, especially, were an art form. And you, lucky you, get to carry that art from heart to heart, dodging goats, bandits, and the wrath of rain. The path winds down into a grove of osmanthus trees, their yellow flowers speckling the trail like golden freckles. The air is sweet, floral, and oddly invigorating. You let bean curds slow to a walk and enjoy the moment. You're nearly to the tea town now. Ahead, smoke rises from clay chimneys, and the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer echoes off the hills. Somewhere in those winding lanes, another letter waits to be handed off. Another whisper in ink. Another secret delivered on horseback. And you ride on. As the tea town unfolds ahead of you, its rooftops curved like sleepy eyebrows and its streets perfumed with steam and fried dough, your stomach does a little somersault of anticipation. It's not just the food. You swear the air itself here smells faintly of warm sesame oil and unspoken family recipes. You trot into town like a minor celebrity, dusty, determined, and followed closely by a horse that smells faintly of plum pits. The townsfolk hardly glance up. Couriers pass through here regularly, and unless you're delivering something dramatic, like a royal decree or a scandalous poem to the governor's niece, your arrival is noted only by the dogs. Specifically, 1 dog, a barrel-chested mutt with a limp and a personal vendetta against your boots. You steer bean curd around him with practiced ease, giving a little nod. "Still limping, I see," you murmur. He snorts and lies back down. Mutual respect. Your first stop is the small way station, just past the apothecary, marked by a red lacquer door and the faint, ever-present smell of medicinal paste. The station keeper here is May, a former opera singer who now runs the postal ledger like it's a 3-act tragedy. She spots you before you even dismount. "Late again," she calls dramatically. "Was the moon too heavy to carry this time?" You grin and hand over your dispatch slip. The moon was fine. It was the goat that kept staring. She laughs and waves you in. Inside, the station is dim and cool, lined with scrolls, satchels, and a collection of tea canisters more extensive than any imperial librarian's dreams. You settle into the corner with your logbook and start your update. Distance traveled, time of departure, name of horse, still bean curd for reasons, and list of parcels still in possession. May clucks her tongue as she scans your entries. "You've got one for the Silk Widow," she notes, eyebrows raised. "Oh?" She's up to her elbows in embroidery and rumors. Delivered 4 letters last week, all scented like panic and magnolia. You nod solemnly. Love and panic. Classic blend. After a quick bite, steamed buns with turnip and something that might be mushroom. You take your tea into the courtyard, where a few other couriers rest their tired legs. One of them strums a pipa lazily, plucking notes that drift into the sky like lazy thoughts. Another naps with a hat over her face, boots crossed like she's on vacation rather than in the middle of a 300-li circuit. You take the moment to dig into your satchel and check your letters again. Each scroll is wrapped in layers, silk, wax, sometimes even dried leaves, designed to protect from smudges, moisture, and nosy fingers. One scroll is particularly ornate, tied with a crimson cord and sealed in wax shaped like a carp. Fish seals are rare, symbolizing perseverance, luck, and occasionally unsubtle innuendo. The address is simple: Blue Pavilion, East Side. You know the place. Elegant tea house by day, low-key matchmaking hub by night. You set off on foot, winding through narrow alleys and shaded lanes, where laundry sways between second-floor windows and old men play go with theatrical sighs and intense eyebrow work. At the Blue Pavilion, you hand over the scroll to a girl in green who barely looks old enough to read, but who accepts it with the seriousness of a tax auditor. She bows, you bow, and that's that. Not every delivery ends in fanfare. Some just land like seeds in quiet soil. Back at the station, May is fussing over an inventory scroll that seems to have been attacked by tea stains and what looks like a tiny inkwell explosion. She waves you toward the supply shelf. You'll want to restock before heading up the ridge. Weather turns at night and the noodles up there are aggressive. You grab the essentials: dried bean curd, ironically, roasted barley cakes, and one of May's infamous ginger mystery balls, which may contain anything from licorice root to existential dread. Historians still argue whether Tang couriers were responsible for restocking their own food or if relay stations provided standard rations. Given the variability of station quality, ranging from luxurious inn to wet hut guarded by a suspicious goose, most agree that improvisation was key. You tuck the supplies into your saddle pouch, give bean curd a grateful pat, and mount up once more. The sun is beginning its slow descent, casting golden stripes across the dusty path ahead. As you leave the town, the clamor fades into birdsong and the low whistle of wind through pine. You glance back just once. May's figure lingers in the doorway, silhouetted by the amber light. She waves. You wave. And then it's just you, the horse, and the quiet stretch of road curling up toward the ridge. You hum a tune you barely remember, maybe from a lullaby, maybe from a tavern, maybe something a fellow courier once sang during a thunderstorm. The words don't matter. It's the rhythm that carries you forward. And ahead, the world still waits, full of hills and letters and people who don't yet know they're about to fall in love by mail. The road to the ridge curves upward like a forgotten melody, winding through tall pines and low fog that swirls around your boots like silk unraveling from a bolt. Bean curd huffs quietly beneath you, sure-footed despite the incline, her hooves, tapping ancient stone like a gong in the quiet hills. As the altitude rises, the temperature drops. You wrap your cloak tighter, thankful for May's unsolicited addition of a hand-woven scarf tucked into your saddlebag. It smells faintly of ginger and tea leaves. May claims not to like anyone, but her gift-giving habits say otherwise. This stretch of the courier route runs along the Gobi's breath, winds that curl through the mountains from the desert's edge, bringing with them the taste of dust and far-off camel caravans. The locals call it the paper wind because of how it tears through banners, scrolls, and even, if you're unlucky, the odd, poorly wrapped letter. You reach a post house built half into the hillside, its front like a stubborn turtle shell braced against the elements. The signboard above the door reads, "Whispering Gate," and it lives up to its name. Every creak of the beams, every flutter of parchment, sounds like someone trying to start a conversation without actually saying anything. Inside, the space is dimly lit and smells of hot stones, old soup, and wet wool. A brazier crackles in the corner, barely warming the room. The station keeper, an elderly man with eyebrows so bushy they need their own postal district, greets you with a grunt. "No stew left," he says without looking up. "Didn't ask. Didn't care." A classic welcome. You hand over your route token, and he squints at it as if deciding whether to bite it or burn it. After some extended grumbling, he hands you a clay cup of millet tea and nods toward a cushion by the fire. You sip slowly, the warmth creeping into your fingers. Thigh. Walls of the post house are decorated with old scrolls, notes and fragments left behind by previous writers. Some are poems, others are weather reports, border alerts, or passive-aggressive doodles directed at specific toll collectors. One drawing features a tiger chasing a man labeled Inspector Wren, though no one remembers who Wren was. Likely, best for him. As you settle in, a younger courier bursts through the door, shaking snow from his sleeves. He's soaked, half frozen, and breathing like he just raced a deer uphill. His name is Ping, and he's a junior route runner known for three things: getting lost, finding hidden shortcuts, and inventing stories so elaborate they require sequels. He collapses onto the mat next to you, exhales dramatically, and says, "You would not believe the size of the owl I just saw." You blink. Did it speak? Almost. It stared, judging. It knows too much. You sip your tea. "You've been riding without sleep again." "Sleep is for poets," he declares, then immediately dozes off, sitting upright. The station keeper snorts. "Poet, my foot. That boy once tried to deliver a birthday card to the wrong dynasty." You smile and let the fire lull you into stillness. Later, you step into the sleeping quarters, a narrow room with a row of mats and thick wool blankets that smell like goats who've seen too much. You roll into your corner, using your satchel. As a pillow, letters pressed gently between layers like precious secrets. Outside, the wind moans softly through the pine beams. You can hear the occasional hoot of a very judgmental owl and the drip-drip of melting frost from the eaves. It's peaceful in the strange way mountain quiet always is, as if time folds here, makes room for waiting. You think about the letters again. One of them, slender, violet-sealed, folded with almost obsessive precision, has no name. Just an address, marked with the phrase, "West of the Cedar Tower, third lantern from the gate." Historians still argue whether Tang addresses were always so poetic, or if this practice developed later as nostalgia layered over logistics. But courier records suggest the truth lies somewhere in between. Love, after all, often prefers metaphor over latitude and longitude. You wonder what's inside. A confession? A goodbye? A question asked in the ink equivalent of a whisper? Or maybe it's just someone asking, "Are you still thinking of me?" Sleep comes slowly, in patches. A dream of red ribbons tied to gateposts. A memory of a dumpling stolen by a fox. A sensation of galloping through rain, ink-streaked letters tucked beneath your cloak like feathers. And then it's morning again. You rise, bleary-eyed but steady. Outside, the frost glitters on every surface. The mountains hum. Bean curd paws the ground with anticipation. Today, you ride into the lower desert. Sand, salt air. And somewhere out there, a lover waiting for a line of poetry only you can deliver. Dawn paints the ridgeline with strokes of honey and brass as you guide bean curd out of the mountain shadows. The wind has quieted, replaced by the soft hush of sand brushing stone and the occasional cough of a grouchy raven overhead. You're officially leaving the forested hill regions and entering the edge of the desert basin, where the landscape changes personality every few li. Now flirtatious and dry, now brooding and sun-drenched. The path ahead is flat and sun-bleached. The kind of road that makes you squint and second-guess mirages. Tiny lizards dart across the sand. Your cloak, still dusted with mountain frost, feels out of place here, but you keep it wrapped tight. You know better than to let desert wind fool you into comfort. It always turns on you. The post house today lies at the edge of a tiny settlement called Inkstone Hollow, a curious little oasis town built around an old scholar's retreat. The story goes, a Tang poet once spilled his ink well into the spring here, and the locals decided the water itself became more artful afterward. Of course, the water just tasted vaguely of iron and regret, but the myth stuck. As you ride, the sand begins to mingle with clay and crushed shells, tiny remnants of an ancient lake bed. You pass a family of herders guiding goats with bells, tied to their horns, the sound bouncing like laughter across the dry air. One child waves at you with a stick covered in ribbon. You return the gesture with a nod and a coin flicked from your sleeve. He catches it with practiced speed. Further along, you encounter an old man seated on a stone, fanning himself with a scrap of palm bark. He gestures to your saddlebag. "You've got a poem in there," he says. You slow. "A few, probably." "Any? About loss?" "Most of them." He nods as if he knew it all along. "Those ride lighter, I've heard." Historians still argue whether traveling poets often disguised themselves as beggars or couriers during Tang times to avoid attention or taxes. But there's no denying that along the lesser roads of the empire, truth and performance often shared a drink. You press on, the sun now higher, your shadow sharp against the ground. You think about the letter with the violet seal again, still unopened, still cryptic. You resist the urge to gently shake it. Inkstone Hollow comes into view, like a smudge on the edge of parchment. Low clay houses, palms rustling, and a square shaded by makeshift awnings. You tie bean curd near the town's central well, her ears flicking lazily, and make your way to the post house. It's modest, sun-cracked with faded banners and a water clock that may or may not be lying. Inside, it's pleasantly cool. Walls, made from compacted mud brick, the floor dusted with woven mats, and a stone table where the station manager scribbles furiously. He doesn't look up. "Courier, route." You pass your token across the table. He inspects it briefly, then gestures toward the water basin. "Drink." Then we talk. The water is mineral-rich, metallic with a trace of salt. You sip gratefully. The manager's name is Jian. He has the posture of someone who once loved reading scrolls by candlelight, but now mostly reads inventories by necessity. He points to a side table stacked with outgoing messages. 2 for the Southern Temple, 1 for the Salt Commissioner's wife. And this... He picks up a carefully wrapped scroll and places it delicately before you. "For the Lady of Plum Dust Pavilion." You raise an eyebrow. "Is that a place or a person?" "Yes." You decide not to ask further. The package is small, firm, and unusually dense. It smells faintly of sandalwood and something older. Parchment, maybe, or ancient sorrow. You tuck it into your inner sleeve beside the others. Outside, a group of children play a game with rocks and rhymes, their voices lilting in a dialect you only half understand. One verse seems to reference horses that deliver kisses and tigers that forget birthdays. Poetry or perhaps personal trauma, you can never tell with kids. You return to bean curd and set off again, the road now stretching south toward the edge of a salt flat where the sun bakes everything into quiet submission. There's a moment about halfway across when the wind dies completely. No birds, no hoofbeats, no breath. Just you, suspended in stillness, the letters in your pouch resting like whispered spells against your chest. You let the silence fill you. These are the moments couriers remember. Not the long nights, not the late fees, not even the occasional arrows. It's this, the absolute pause in the empire's heartbeat, where you feel like the last word on the last page of a book no one dares close. And then a gust returns, playful and warm. Bean curd snorts, you smile. Time to ride. Bean curd's hooves meet the hardened salt of the flats with a gentle crunch, the kind that whispers instead of echoes. The surface is so smooth in places, it reflects the sky, blurring the line between earth and heaven. You slow your pace, not out of caution, but reverence. This isn't a place to rush. This is a place that swallows sound and spits back stillness. Your route skirts the eastern edge of the salt basin, hugging a low ridge dotted with wind-carved stones and the occasional prayer flag. These markers, scraps of red or gold cloth, tied to stakes, are couriers' landmarks, placed during difficult crossings, often in silence, often while muttering hopeful phrases like, "Please no more sand in my soup." You're watching the horizon when it happens. A thud, then a stumble. Bean Curd hobbles mid-step. You dismount in an instant, heart suddenly alert. She lifts her front right hoof and wobbles. You kneel and inspect. There it is. Her shoe has split. Of course. You sigh and reach into your bag for your emergency kit. It contains many things: needles, thread, dried pears, and yes, a courier's most humble salvation, a roll of cured goat hide and 2 strips of metal designed for makeshift repairs. As you work, Bean Curd eyes you with a mixture of pity and smugness. You mutter something affectionate about stubborn mares and cursed terrain. She flicks her ear in response. The patch job holds, barely. It'll last another 15 li, maybe more if you avoid sharp gravel and philosophical discussions with other horses. You lead her for a while, walking beside her along the edge of the salt crust where the footing is softest. It's quiet again. Not eerie, just thoughtful. You find yourself humming, a courier's tune. No lyrics, just rhythm. It's said these melodies were passed down through riders across generations, each adding a note, a pause, a whistle, like verbal fingerprints marking time. Historians still debate whether Tang couriers really developed distinct travel songs, or if modern performers romanticized the idea. But accounts from mountain stations and border towns suggest that music, whether sung or tapped against saddle pommels, was as integral to the ride as ink and oats. Eventually, the terrain shifts. The salt gives way to gravel, then to sand, then finally to dry grass and gnarled trees. You're nearing the next way station, Baishu Hut. It's named after a white tree that grows outside the stable yard, crooked, old, and blessed by a monk, who reportedly retired here after an epiphany involving steamed dumplings. The tree's bark is ghost pale and riddled with notes tied to the branches. Wishes, apologies, occasional bad poetry. You've contributed once or twice yourself. You tie Bean Curd near the trough and approach the tree. It's ritual. You untie. One faded note from last season. It reads, "Tell her I meant every word, even the ones I spelled wrong." You smile and add your own, scribbled hastily on rice paper. Safe hooves, steady wind, no surprises. You tuck it into a crook between branches. Inside the station, the air is thick with steam and beef broth. A pot bubbles in the corner, and the keeper, an enormous man named Lin with hands like bread loaves, nods you inside. He gestures at the pot. "Soup?" Only if it's friendly. He ladles you a bowl. It's mostly root vegetables and a suspiciously chewy mushroom, but you're not here to judge culinary ambition. You settle into a corner to rest and sort your messages. You count them again. 7. All intact, all sealed, all full of someone's hope, fear, longing, or questionable haiku. One letter stands out now, not because of its scent or ribbon, but because of its simplicity. Plain paper, no wax, just a name. Second Moongate. No address, no district. You frown, you've seen this before. These are test messages, deliberately vague, sometimes part of internal courier exams or unofficial rites of passage. Find the addressee. Deliver the note. Don't ask why. You tuck it carefully into your pouch. Another puzzle. Another story. Lynn plops down beside you with a sigh that registers on the Richter scale. Storm coming tomorrow. he says casually. Smells like it. You sniff. Smells like soup. Same thing. You both laugh. Outside, the wind picks up slightly, rustling the tree notes and sending the scent of broth into the night. You don't linger long. Time to ride again. The road calls, even if it calls quietly. You mount Bean Curd, whose patched hoof still holds, and set off along the winding trail lined with trees and dust-colored stones. Somewhere up ahead, Second Moon Gate waits, and beyond that, the rest of the empire. Letters whisper softly against your side, every fold a promise, every mile a verse. Night has settled over the trail like a silk veil, draping each tree and rock in soft shadows and slow quiet. Your lantern, swaying gently from your saddle, casts a little pool of light around you, just enough to keep the path visible, not enough to scare away the dark entirely. Bean Curd walks with measured care now, her patched hoof clicking in rhythm with the occasional chirp of a night insect. The air is cooler, perfumed with damp earth and distant smoke. Someone's cooking rice, or maybe burning old scrolls as an offering. Both happen often on these roads. You're headed for Chang'an. Not directly, of course. Your route will skim the outskirts of the great capital, dipping just close enough to deliver 2 scrolls to lower-ranking officials who live, quite conveniently, just inside the city's south gate. That's where most couriers prefer to operate, not within the palace's glare, but along its dim-lit hem. As the city looms closer, its glow begins to spill over the hills like warm ink. Chang'an at night is a sleeping giant. The main roads are silent, save for patrols and the odd merchant packing up his wares. But in the alleyways, life hums softly. A flute in the distance, a dog chasing its tail in an echoing courtyard, the creak of someone closing a bamboo shutter just a bit too late. You know these streets like the back of your calloused hand. You pass under a wooden arch painted with gold that's mostly flaked away, turn at a statue of a horse missing one ear, and slip through the quarter where the air smells perpetually of dumplings and ambition. Your first delivery is to a scholar named Lu. His house is modest, but the front gate is lacquered deep red and adorned with fresh flowers, a quiet flex. You knock gently. A servant appears, barely suppressing a yawn. When you hand over the letter, he examines the seal, nods once, and disappears without another word. Couriers are used to being invisible. Next stop, a perfumer's daughter who lives above her family's shop near the Lantern District. You climb narrow stairs lit by pale oil lamps. She answers herself, young, sharp-eyed, with the air of someone who has never once forgotten a single scent or insult. She accepts the letter with a tiny smile. "Jasmine and rosemary," she murmurs, sniffing the wax seal. "He's learning." You bow politely, and she closes the door. Historians still argue whether love letters in Chang'an followed set scent codes: jasmine for longing, sandalwood for sorrow, camphor for apology. Some say it was all coincidence. Others point to collections of smelling notes found in old diaries. You've carried enough scented scrolls to suspect the truth is somewhere in the middle. People rarely agree on anything, but everyone agrees smell matters more than they want to admit. With your city deliveries done, you find a place to rest. An inn for couriers hidden between a tea house and a lampmaker's stall. It's called Quiet Flame. The beds are wooden planks softened by old quilts, and the soup always tastes faintly of fennel. You love it. You stable Bean Curd beside 2 other horses, one snoozing, one glaring, one chewing on the stable sign for no apparent reason. Inside, you sink onto a mat and stretch out, your satchel tucked beneath your head like an awkward pillow, full of whispers. The room buzzes with distant sounds, laughter, firecrackers in the far quarter, the slow tapping of rain starting on the rooftop. You pull out your route map, unroll it, and trace your path so far. From the eastern provinces, through orchard towns, over the ridge, across the salt flats, and now here, halfway through, more or less. There are still letters to deliver, still names without faces, still verses waiting to be unfolded. One scroll in your pouch seems warmer than the others. It's the one addressed to Second Moon Gate. You examine it again. Still, no return name, no embellishment, just a simple seal, pressed with a single thumbprint. No wax, no ribbon, just a whisper of a touch. You wonder who it's for. You wonder how you'll know. Sleep eventually takes you, wrapped in a blanket that smells faintly of horses and history. When you wake, it's still dark, but only just. Pre-dawn silence, the moment when the stars are fading, but the sun hasn't. Yet made demands. You gear up quietly, eat a rice bun from the innkeeper's daughter, still warm, still sweet, and mount bean curd. She seems refreshed. Her patched hoof holds. You leave Chang'an the way you entered it, silently, quickly, through roads that remember you but never ask questions. South now, always south. Second Moon Gate is waiting. The road south from Chang'an runs like a silk thread sewn through patchwork fields, rice paddies, mulberry groves, and the occasional graveyard with stone lions that look like they're just barely tolerating your existence. Bean curd, fueled by rest and a questionable carrot, trots with renewed energy. You hold the reins loosely, letting the rhythm of her stride guide your thoughts. The air is warmer now, tinged with the scent of wet soil and freshly trimmed cypress. The morning mists lift slowly, revealing glimpses of daily life. Women washing, laundry in shallow streams, children dragging sticks through puddles, an old man standing beside a cart of melons and whispering, presumably, life advice to a crow perched on his shoulder. You cross a small arched bridge, its stones slick with moss. A scholar sits at the center, brush in hand, sketching the water's surface on a bamboo fan. He glances up as you pass and says, "Do you deliver regrets?" You pause. Only the ones people write down. He nods as if you've confirmed a theory. Historians still argue whether couriers ever composed messages for their clients, especially those who were illiterate or too heartbroken to form words. Folk tales abound of couriers who ghost-wrote poetry, breakups, or declarations of war. Some claim these writers were more therapist than messenger. You've definitely been handed a few scrolls with the ink still wet and the sender's eyes still shining. The road forks near an old way shrine, a worn stone platform nestled beneath a weeping willow. You choose the lesser path, narrower and lined with cobblestones polished by 1,000 hooves before yours. You're heading toward a town called Wenshui, but you're not staying long. There's a message to deliver there, and then it's time to find Second Moon Gate. By midday, you reach Wenshui. It's a tidy place, full of clay rooftops and orderly gardens. Even the ducks here walk in single file. You head straight for the silversmith's lane, a cluster of shops ringing like bells as artisans hammer wire into spirals. Your delivery is for a jeweler's apprentice. He takes the scroll shyly, fingers brushing the seal like it might burn him. He thanks you in a voice so soft you almost miss it. Then he disappears into the back of the shop with the message clutched tightly. You linger just long enough to buy a sesame cake from a vendor who's not even pretending to smile, and then ride on. The road beyond Wenshui is quieter still, and the towns begin to space farther apart. Soon, you're surrounded only by tall grasses and narrow irrigation channels. You ride past scarecrows dressed in festival clothes, their faces painted with cheerful smirks and faded defiance. You stop, briefly at a shaded pond to let bean curd drink. While she laps noisily, you perch on a rock and recheck your route notes. Among the usual destinations and delivery confirmations, there's now a small scribble you added yourself. Find Second Moon Gate, ask at Lantern Tree. You don't even remember writing it, but you know exactly what it means. The Lantern Tree isn't on most maps. It's a waymarker used by couriers in the southern provinces, an old camphor tree strung with paper lanterns, each one tied by a different rider over the years. It stands near a bend in the trail outside any town, marking a kind of pause. You set off with purpose now, veering from the main road onto a grassy trail nearly overtaken by reeds and indifferent butterflies. And there it is, the lantern tree. Huge, gnarled, and half-lit by the sun, its branches weighed down by paper. Lanterns in every color, red for safe travel, white for a lost rider, blue for unanswered letters, gold for something secret. Most are faded, torn by weather, or gently swaying in the breeze as if whispering. You dismount, walk up to the trunk, and search. There, tucked among the lower limbs, a wooden tag hangs by a leather strip. Burned into it are 3 characters. Yue Menor, Moongate 2. You exhale slowly. The directions are scrawled beneath it. Past the ridge, second stream on the left, house with the wind chime of bones. Reassuring. You leave a small offering under the tree, 2 plum seeds and a joke scratched into a scrap of cloth. Courier walks into a tea house. Waiter asks, "What's the message?" Courier says, "Hope." Corny, but the tree seems amused. You mount up again and ride toward the ridge, heart lighter, nerves steadier. Second Moon Gate, you're finally on your way. The path to Second Moon Gate is less a road and more a polite suggestion. After the ridge, it narrows into a winding trail barely wide enough for Bean Curd to navigate without brushing against the tall grasses that sway like gossiping aunties. You follow the directions etched on that tag, past a gnarled cypress, over a shallow stream with water clear enough to see your reflection. You look tired, but the heroic kind of tired. And then veer left through a gap in the hillside that seems to open only when you're sure you're lost. The house appears slowly, as if it's unsure whether you're the one it's expecting. Nestled among mossy stones and flowering bushes, it doesn't look like much. Wooden slats, clay roof, a low fence made from sticks tied together with ribbon. But then you hear it, a faint clinking sound, like wind playing with someone's memories. Hanging from the eaves is a wind chime made entirely from old ink brushes and polished bone tokens. It tinkles with the sound of forgotten verses. You dismount. Tie Bean Curd to a nearby tree with more patience than she deserves, and approach the door. There's no sign, no lantern, just a worn mat, and a feeling that your arrival has been anticipated since before the letter was even written. You knock once. The door creaks open just enough to reveal an eye, dark, calm, and utterly unbothered by the interruption. Then it opens wider. Standing before you is a woman, perhaps 60, perhaps immortal. Her robes are simple, but spotless. Her hair is pulled back into a knot held by a brush handle. She looks at you like you're not entirely solid yet, then gestures you inside. The house is cool and smells faintly of sandalwood and ink. Scrolls line the walls, not stored, but displayed. Some are half-written, others blank but framed, as though waiting for the right words to show up someday. You say nothing. Couriers are taught early. Silence is sometimes the highest form of respect. She finally speaks. "You brought something." You nod, reach into your pouch, and retrieve the plain scroll addressed to Second Moon Gate. No wax seal, just the faint memory of a fingerprint. She takes it, turns it over, and doesn't open it. Not yet. Instead, she smiles. Not kindly, but like someone who remembers what kindness costs, and offers you tea. You sit. The tea is green, bitter, beautiful. She doesn't ask questions. You don't either. But your eyes drift to a nearby scroll pinned to the wall, short, just a few characters written in a style so fluid it looks like it was exhaled rather than penned. Even the quietest word leaves a trail. She notices you reading. "That was his," she says. "From before." You nod. The letter you delivered is now resting beside the teacups. unopened but vibrating with potential. You wonder who wrote it. You wonder what it says. But you never ask. Not because you aren't curious, oh you are, but because this is sacred ground, and sacredness thrives best when left unprodded. She reaches for the scroll, pauses, then, almost too quietly, "Would you stay while I read?" "You do. Of course you do." She opens it slowly, delicately, as if it might vanish. Her eyes skim, then settle. Her hands don't tremble, but her breath catches. She folds it shut after a moment. Doesn't say anything. Instead, she places the scroll, beside the one on the wall. Then she looks at you and says, "There's more to deliver." You blink. "From me?" She nods. "From here." She disappears into the back room and returns with a small pouch. Inside is a letter wrapped in midnight blue silk and tied with a string made from hair. Not thread. Hair. You stare. She shrugs. He was a poet. He believed messages needed pieces of their sender. You tuck the letter into your sash. It's heavier than the others, as though it carries a past too big for one scroll. She walks you out to the tree. Bean-curd knickers, nuzzling your arm like she missed you, which you both know is a lie. As you mount, the woman touches your foot lightly and says, "You're not just delivering words anymore." You nod. "I know." And then you're off, down. The narrow trail, back toward the road. The new letter snug against your side, whispering secrets it hasn't even told itself yet. The sun has begun its lazy descent as you ride away from the house with the wind chime of bones, casting long shadows across the trail. Each hoofbeat echoes differently now. Not louder, just deeper, like the road itself is listening. The new letter in your pouch hums with presence. Not literally, of course. You're not that sleep-deprived. But it has that kind of weight. The spiritual mass of a message carried across years, lives, maybe lifetimes. You find yourself adjusting your posture, riding a little straighter as though the letter expects a certain dignity from its courier. Your path veers through a cedar grove. The air is crisp and smells like pencil shavings and promises. You're about to pass by a calligraphy shop, one of those tiny roadside kiosks where wandering poets and lazy scholars lounge around, perfecting their strokes and their gossip. It's not an official stop, but your belly growls, and you're curious. The shop is a lean-to made of stacked books, with paper scrolls fluttering in the wind like it's trying to write something itself. A man sits cross-legged beneath the eaves, dipping his brush in ink so slowly it's unclear if he's painting or just very committed to the moment. He looks up as you approach. "Courier?" You nod. "Got a minute for some honesty and noodles?" That, you think, should be the Empire's motto. You dismount. He waves you in, and soon you're seated on a cushion, a bowl of spicy broth in one hand, a set of half-finished couplets in the other. He watches you read. "Careful," he says. "That one made a general weep." You raise an eyebrow. Because it was beautiful? No. Because it compared his mustache to a wounded caterpillar. You choke on a noodle. As you wipe your mouth, he leans in, glancing at your satchel. "You know," he says, "some of us write letters for people who don't know what to say." You nod. "Ghostwriters?" More like heart interpreters. "Poetry therapists." He gestures to a drawer behind him and pulls out a bundle of rejected drafts. "People come in crying, yelling, or smiling too much. They want to say everything, but their brush won't behave. So I help them say one thing well." He hands you one such draft. It begins, "I miss you in every season, but especially in plum rain." You nod, impressed. "They didn't send it," he shrugs. "Too vulnerable. Went with, 'Hope you're well' instead." You feel that, deeply. Historians still argue whether letter writers like this operated formally or informally. Some think they were part of a regulated class, scribe poets sanctioned by the Ministry of Rights. Others believe they were freelance romantics, filling the gap between literacy and longing. Before you leave, the scribe offers you a favor. Got a message in need of a polish? You think for a moment. Then remember the scroll addressed to the noblewoman. Poor grammar, excellent paper, dangerous perfume. You hand it over. He opens it, reads 2 lines, winces dramatically, and sets to work. With a few quick strokes, he adjusts a metaphor about moonlight on a frog's back into something almost dignified. He replaces a confusing phrase that possibly equates lips to dumplings, you try not to picture it, with a much more palatable line about whispering bamboo. Done, he says, and now you won't be arrested for bad poetry. You hand him 2 coins and a dried apricot from your pouch. Payment in silver and sweetness. Back on the road, you feel oddly refreshed. That's the thing about Tang calligraphy shops. They're less about ink and more about untangling people's hearts with punctuation. The sky shifts to twilight. Fireflies blink lazily over the fields. In the distance, you hear a bamboo flute, being played off-key with great confidence. It's oddly comforting. You think again about the woman at Second Moon Gate, about the letter she gave you, about how it feels like a hinge between lives. Then a soft rattle from your saddlebag. You freeze. You reach in carefully. The scroll is fine, no damage, but something beneath it has shifted. It's a second letter, smaller, hidden in the same silk, unmarked. Just there. You hadn't seen it before. You're sure of it. You hold it up to the fading light. The parchment is older, brittle at the corners. It's tied with a single strand of red thread. No address. No sender. You blink. The wind picks up, and ahead, the night road unfolds. The mystery scroll sits snug in your palm, quiet and unassuming. And yet, you feel it. The weightless weight of something important. You tuck it back into your sash, careful not to let it mingle with the scented love poems and food orders you're still ferrying through the Tang night. You ride on, torch now lit at your side, its glow casting bean curds' ears into long shadow puppets. The road rolls gently downhill, through fields where night jasmine blooms along the ditches. Every now and then the silence is broken by frogs or a cricket orchestra playing something suspiciously off-tempo. You're heading toward a hill station, called 3 Coppers Rest, a modest post marked by a single lantern hanging from a pine, and a hut that has, at various points in history, been a bakery, a brothel, a noodle stall, and, briefly, a place for illegal turtle racing. Now it's back to being a postal stop. Mostly, you arrive just as a drizzle begins to fall. The kind of rain that doesn't bother with drama, just quietly ruins scrolls and moods. You duck inside dripping. "Close it!" someone yells. You shut the door behind you. Inside, it's a tight space with only one bench, a stove, and a man asleep on a pile of scrolls. Another courier is already there, face wrapped in a scarf, only his eyes visible. He nods. You nod. Couriers communicate mostly through exhausted semaphore. You remove your scrolls, checking for damp. One, the finely penned poem wrapped in pink. Rice paper has begun to smudge. You curse under your breath. "Rain ink," Scarfeyes says, muffled. "Should have double-oiled it." You peel back the paper carefully. One line has survived. "If the clouds could write, would they write? Of you?" The rest has bled into abstract art. You dig into your emergency scroll pouch. Ah yes, your Save the Poetry kit. A scrap of silk, a brush, and a tiny box of ink thick as syrup. You dab, blot, and breathe. But it's no use. The verses are soup now, emotional soup. The station keeper, a man with more chin than neck, offers you a dried reed and a replacement sheet. "Go on," he grunts. "Fix it." You hesitate. This isn't your poem, but you can guess enough to make a safe attempt. You write, "The moon is just water's memory. I send this thought where ink cannot reach." You sign it with the original sender's pseudonym, Winter Dusk. It'll have to do. Historians still argue whether couriers often rewrote letters on the road. Technically, it was forbidden, but there are surviving examples where the calligraphy changes halfway through. Some say couriers stepped in to preserve meaning, others say they got bored and tried to help. Either way, tonight you've joined that tradition. You seal the new version, tuck it gently away, and dry the rest of your messages near the stove. The scarf-wrapped courier watches you for a while, then says, "Ever rewrite one that wasn't ruined?" You glance at the mystery scroll. Not yet. The rain thickens into a steady percussion on the clay tile roof. Someone snores. The fire crackles. It smells of wet parchment and roasted turnips. You settle onto the bench, satchel beside you, sword of ink at your side. Just for tonight, you let your head tilt. Let your eyes soften, and that's when it hits. A memory, unbidden, of your very first letter. The one you delivered as a novice, half a province late and with half the address missing. You remember the recipient, an old woman in a garden. She read the message, nodded once, and gave you a persimmon. No thanks, no gold, just fruit. That was enough. You blink back to the present. The second scroll from Second Moon Gate calls again, not loudly, just a whisper. Like it knows something, you pull it out, examine the thread, the paper, and notice faintly, pressed into the bottom corner, nearly invisible. To be opened by moonlight only. You look outside. The drizzle has stopped. The moon is rising, slim, elegant, and curious. You step out. Under that silver glow, you untie the thread, and the words reveal themselves. The letters are faint at first, as though the parchment is only just remembering them. But as the moonlight brushes across the surface, they sharpen, ink blooming into legibility like a flower that prefers secrets to sunlight. You read, "To the one who rides between lives. If you've found this, then time has bent again. You carry more than letters now. You carry a choice. You pause, blink. The words feel directed, not just to a courier, to you." Bean Curd shifts her weight behind you, as if she too senses the hinge that's opened in the world. The scroll continues. "This message was sent once before, to a rider I never met, but the answer never came. If you read this and choose to respond, leave your reply at the toll of the third tree." You frown. The third tree, you've heard of it. Not on any map. But among couriers, it's a kind of legend. A lone camphor tree on the old southern road. It marks a toll station that doesn't collect money, just stories. A place where lost messages and sometimes lost riders are said to gather. You roll up the scroll and sit there for a long moment under the moon. You should be unnerved, but instead you feel anchored. A choice, it said. Not a command, not an order. A choice. You return inside 3 Coppers Rest, the heat of the fire welcoming, the scent of drying parchment now familiar. You tuck the scroll into a separate pouch, away from the love letters and tax requests and awkward romantic metaphors involving geese. This one doesn't belong in that crowd. You sleep lightly, dreamlessly. When morning comes, you leave quietly, before the scarfed courier or the chin-forward station keeper are even stirring. Bean Curd is ready, always is. The southern road opens before you, dusty and sun-dappled, its stones still damp from last night's rain. You follow it, eyes scanning each tree along the edge. 1, 2, and there, yes, the third tree. It stands alone. In a clearing where the road forks, tall and ancient, bark carved with names, initials, even bad poetry scratched in with knives. Around its base are offerings, pebbles, feathers, buttons, half-eaten dumplings, questionable, and, yes, a scroll tube bound with string. You approach, dismount, and kneel. There's no toll gate, no guards, no sign. Just the tree and time. and the slight breeze that makes its leaves whisper like an audience waiting for a show to begin. You open your satchel, pull out a fresh sheet of paper, think. What do you say to a message like that? Eventually, your brush moves. I am not the one who was meant to read you, but I ride in their stead, and I choose yes. You fold it, seal it with a pressed plum petal from your pouch, and place it gently into the scroll tube. You set it at the tree's base and walk away. Historians will never agree on what happened at the toll of the third tree. Some claim it was a superstition. Others say it was a hidden courier node, used only for emergencies or romance too embarrassing for public routes. But you know the truth. It was a mailbox for fate, and today, you sent a letter to the future. As you ride on, the sky opens fully, and for a moment the road ahead seems brighter than it should. The road stretches ahead like a lazy poem, looping, meandering, skipping the boring verbs. You ride with a subtle lightness in your chest, like a weight has shifted but not disappeared. The message you left at the third tree still hums in your thoughts. But now it's quieter. Less of a riddle, more of a lullaby. You reach a ridge overlooking a lowland valley dotted with plum trees just beginning to bloom. Their pale blossoms flutter on the wind like little pink punctuation marks against the earth. A rider approaches. From the south, fast, lean, and covered in a fine layer of trail dust that suggests either glory or very determined chickens. As the rider nears, you recognize the braid, the scar across the left boot, and the way the horse occasionally tries to bite anything within reach. It's Yingzi. She reins in beside you with the flair of someone who knows how dramatic she looks when she stops just so. Didn't expect to see you this far out, you shrug. Got rerouted by destiny. She nods like that's normal. You still doing love letters and fermented food orders? You grin. Some, yes, but also carrying one that smells like ghost ink and moonlight. Yingzi raises an eyebrow. That's the good stuff. You ride together for a while, the rhythm of your horses sinking into that quiet two-beat tempo of shared miles. She tells you about her last delivery, a scroll that arrived smelling like roses and regret. Apparently, the recipient dunked it in tea and then cried into it. Poetry, she claims, has never been more hydrated. You pass a way station at midday, just a lean shack with a carved rooster on the roof. A boy offers you each a plum and a bowl of vinegar noodles. You eat. You toast with tea. As you ready to leave, Yingzi pulls something from her bag. A return letter, she says, handing you a small square scroll wrapped in fabric that smells faintly of magnolia. You frown. For me? She shakes her head. For your delivery list, addressed to a plum dust pavilion. Ring any bells? You blink. Of course, that cryptic little spot near the old salt road. You carried a letter there a week ago, delivered it to a woman with silence in her eyes and hands that smelled of old ink. You tuck the return letter beside your others. Later, as you and Yingzi part ways at a fork in the trail, she offers a final word over her shoulder. Be careful. Some letters don't want to be delivered. You wave. And some couriers don't want to admit they're tired. You both laugh, and the sound rides the wind long after she's out of sight. You continue, southeast, following the trail through a patch of wind-warped pines. The branches here seem to lean closer, as if they too want to eavesdrop on the scrolls in your pouch. You pause at a small shrine built into the roots of a fallen tree. Inside is a single candle, unlit, and a tiny note pinned to the wood. He wrote once, I wrote always. You leave behind a camphor bead and a nod. Historians still argue whether these roadside shrines were meant for deities, dead lovers, or other couriers. The truth? Probably all three. The line blurs when enough ink and miles are involved. As evening drapes itself over the trees, you arrive at a low, sun-baked house with a sign etched in faint calligraphy, Plum Dust Pavilion. The shutters are closed. The air is still. You knock, a pause, then the door opens, just a crack. She peers out, the same woman, same silence, but her eyes are softer this time. You hand her the reply. No words, just the scroll and a small bow. She takes it, opens the door, wider, and nods once. You feel somehow that you've completed something. Not everything, but something. Back on the trail, the stars blink awake one by one. You count them like receipts for a day well spent. The letters in your satchel rustle gently. Still more stories to carry. Still more ink to protect. But tonight, at least, one whisper has come full circle. The sky deepens from plum to indigo as you ride further south. The wind soft against your cheeks like the afterthought of a dream. The trail narrows again, threading between low hills and fields left fallow for the season. You pass an old scarecrow draped in silk sleeves, long faded, flapping in the breeze like a court official retired into agriculture. You pause for a moment under a peach tree to check your messages. Still 5 letters in your care. One of them, oddly enough, smells like cinnamon and lamp oil. You don't remember receiving it, but it's addressed properly, sealed, and bears the courier code from a relay station up north. Strange, but not impossible. Sometimes scrolls slip in at post houses when you're not looking. Sometimes fate scribbles things when you're asleep. You tuck it away and ride on. Not far from the next bend, you catch up with a merchant caravan, crawling along the road. Their lead cart has thrown a wheel, and now 3 very loud men are debating how best to argue about it. The horses look unimpressed. The goats look entertained. You slow down out of habit and courtesy. One of the guards calls out, "Courier, seen any carpenters ahead?" You shake your head, but point toward a cluster of pine trees and say, "There's a woodcutter who mends wagons when he's in the mood. Bribe him with dried apricots." The guard nods gratefully. "You've done this before." "Oh, I've been broken down in that exact spot. Twice." As you pass, one of the younger merchants jogs up beside you, puffing with effort. "Got a question," he says. "Heard a story about a courier who ran off with a noblewoman after reading one of her love letters. Truth or tale?" You smirk. "Bit of both." He grins, satisfied, and jogs back. Historians still debate whether Tang couriers ever tampered with the letters they carried, opened them, altered them, read them aloud under moonlight. Some scrolls recovered from burial sites bear telltale signs of being unfolded and refolded. One famous case involved a courier who inserted commentary between the lines of a love poem, allegedly to help the rhythm. You, of course, would never. You mostly wouldn't. As twilight settles in, you find yourself thinking about one particular scroll, the plain one with the strange cinnamon scent. You open your satchel, but it's not there. You frown, dismount, search again. Nothing. And then, from behind you, a voice. "Lose something?" You whirl around. It's an older courier, perched on a rock by the roadside, tossing a scroll casually from hand to hand. His robe is patched, his boots are cracked, but his eyes gleam like someone who knows all the shortcuts. "You were going to misdeliver this," he says mildly, holding up the cinnamon scroll. "It's not for the name on the outside. It's for the one who finds it by mistake." You blink. "Is that allowed?" He shrugs. "No rules against serendipity. Just hard to invoice." He tosses the scroll back to you. You catch it. The name on the label has shifted. No longer the original addressee, but yours. Your name. In someone else's handwriting. You stare at it, then glance up. But the man is gone. Just the rock, the road, and the scent of cinnamon hanging in the air like an unsent promise. You hold the scroll for a long moment. Then, gently, you place it back into your pouch. Ahead, the road splits into 3 paths. The signs are faded, but you know which one leads to your next stop. A town called Yao Crossing, famous for its river, its sticky rice dumplings, and its Scandalous festival masks. You nudge bean curd onward. The stars thicken above and the trail hums with unseen verses. Whatever the cinnamon letter says, you'll read it. But not tonight. Tonight, you ride. The road into Yao Crossing dips and twists like a forgotten ribbon left behind after a festival, half trampled, slightly muddy, but still glittering with memory. The moon rides high now, casting silver light over the town's low rooftops, and the wide, sleepy river that slices it in two. As you enter, you catch whiffs of fermented soy, wet stone, and somewhere, unmistakably, the crackling aroma of sesame oil being coaxed into greatness. It's a good town to be hungry in, and you are. You guide bean curd along the main street, nodding to the few lantern-lit figures still awake. One man crouches beside a gutter, carving tiny turtles into coins. Another mumbles into a reed flute, unsure whether he's playing music or asking the universe for a refund. Your destination tonight isn't a home or a tea house. It's the Bureau of Scroll Inventory, a building as exciting as it sounds. Located near the old bridge, it doubles as the town's archive, courier checkpoint, and occasional dumpling dispute resolution center. You dismount and tie bean curd. Beneath a banner that reads, in very large brushwork, "Do not urinate on the walls," she snorts. You trust her to aim elsewhere. Inside, the air is warm and smells of ink, steamed taro, and long hours. The clerk on duty is a woman of approximately 1 million years old. Her eyebrows are independently employed, and her glasses look like they've seen dynasties fall. She squints at you. "Scroll check?" You nod, hand over your token. She pulls out the official route log, a bamboo-bound ledger thicker than a warhorse's thigh. She flips it open with surprising vigor and begins recording your delivery confirmations. As she writes, you notice a blotch on one of the previous pages. It looks like a tea stain, but you know better. "Someone spill broth again?" you ask. She doesn't look up. "Someone lied about dumpling expenses again. Ink bottle fell over during argument." You smile. Classic courier bureaucracy. She completes your entries, stamps your token, and returns it with a nod. You're 2 days ahead of schedule. That's either impressive or suspicious. Can't it be both? Not unless you bribe me with taro buns. You do, in fact, have one. You offer it. She accepts it with zero guilt. As you leave, she calls after you, "If you've got the cinnamon scroll, best read it soon. Those things don't keep well." You freeze. Turn. "How did you—" But she's already chewing, and already ignoring you. Back outside, you untie bean curd and lead her across the bridge. The moonlight ripples on the river's surface, catching flashes of fish or perhaps just dreams too heavy to sink. You stop mid-bridge, pull out the cinnamon scroll. Still yours, still faintly warm. You untie the thread. Inside, just 5 lines. "You once asked if letters could change fate. I didn't answer. I didn't know. But you are reading this. So maybe yes." There's no signature. You turn the scroll over, just a faint, stamped symbol, a courier's mark, one you haven't seen in years. It belonged to Lei, your old mentor, the rider who taught you how to gallop without breaking your scrolls and how to fold a rejection letter so beautifully it felt like a gift. Lei disappeared 5 years ago on a delivery into the western passes. No one ever found her horse, her gear, or the scrolls she carried, until now. You sit down on the edge of the bridge, scroll in hand, heart heavier than it was a moment ago. Somewhere she'd left this, and somehow it found you. Historians still argue whether lost couriers leave behind messages by intention or chance. If the trails somehow know which rider should find which scroll. If memory travels not just in people, but in paper. You don't argue. You fold the scroll carefully and place it back into your pouch, right beside the one from Second Moon Gate. The river flows beneath you, steady and whispering. You rest a while, longer, then mount up again. Only one more letter to deliver before morning, one more name, one more whisper. Then you ride home. The stars have begun their slow migration across the sky as you leave the bridge behind. Yao Crossing fading into a dream of lanterns and soft ripples. The road is nearly empty now, just you, bean curd, and the quiet hush of a sleeping world. The final scroll in your satchel is wrapped in silk that catches the starlight. It carries the faintest scent of camellia and something smokier underneath, like parchment left too close to a hearth. The address is written in a flowing, aristocratic hand, beautiful, sure, and entirely illegible. Typical. You rely on the only other clue, the instruction carved into the edge of the scroll's seal in tiny characters. Deliver beneath the lantern tree to the hand that waits. Not again. You've already visited the lantern tree once. Its ghostly sway and the messages tied to its branches haunt you in a comforting way. Like a childhood lullaby you're sure came from somewhere real. But instructions are instructions. Couriers are not interpreters. Well, not officially. The journey back toward the lantern tree is longer than you remember. Or maybe it's just that you're finally starting to feel the miles. Every ache in your shoulders, every jostled scroll, every sip of vinegar tea you didn't really want but drank anyway. It's all there in your bones. As you ride, you pass familiar markers now made strange by darkness. The split boulder shaped like a sleeping ox, the tree whose roots curl like ancient hands, the bend in the path that always makes you check your map even though you never need to. Then, suddenly, the glow. The lantern tree stands just ahead, a silhouette of soft fire and tangled branches. Dozens of paper lanterns dangle from its limbs, casting warm halos across the clearing. You slow bean curd to a walk. Her ears twitch, as if she too senses that this place lives on a slightly different rhythm than the rest of the empire. There's someone already there. A figure sits beneath the tree, hunched slightly, wrapped in a cloak that looks more like a blanket than a uniform. You can't see their face. But they don't look surprised to see you. You dismount, keeping one hand lightly on the scroll. The figure straightens. They speak, voice low, cracked by age or travel, or maybe both. Courier? You nod. I was told it would come tonight. You offer the scroll without a word. The person takes it with hands that tremble just slightly. They stare at it for a long moment. Then they untie the silk and read. Silence follows. The kind of silence that has weight. You don't disturb it. After what might be a full breath, or 10, they fold the scroll again and place it beside them. Then, slowly, they look up. You've carried more than letters. You nod. Some were heavier than others. They smile. All the best ones are. You sit beside them, not out of obligation, but because it feels correct. They don't ask your name. You don't ask theirs. The lantern tree sways above you both, its lights blinking like distant stars remembering how to shine. Historians, of course, would say none of this happened. There's no record of this stop. No proof of a scroll that changed nothing and everything. No signature in the Bureau of Scroll Inventory, but some stories don't want to be archived. They just want to be told. After a time, you rise. The person beneath the tree nods once more. Not goodbye. Not even thank you. Just acknowledgement. You mount bean curd. The road home is waiting. You turn north into the breeze, where the stars look slightly clearer and the satchel at your side is finally, blessedly, light. The ride home begins without fanfare. No gates to pass through, no last-minute messages, just the rustle of your cloak, the soft plod of hooves on packed dirt, and the hush of night wrapping itself around you like a blanket freshly aired. You pass through fields that remember your earlier crossings. Rows of millet turned to shadow, plum blossoms now closed like secrets. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks twice and then thinks better of it. Everything feels slower, softer. Like the road is letting you go, gently. The courier station where your journey began comes into view at dawn. It sits low in the earth, humble and weathered, its tiled roof dappled with moss and bird droppings. You've never seen it empty, but right now, it's quieter than you've ever known it. Peaceful even. You dismount. Bean Curd exhales dramatically. You pat her neck. You carried poetry and mystery and at least one fermented snack. She snorts, proud or indignant, hard to tell. Inside the station, the ledger awaits. You dip your brush in ink and fill in the last entry. Returned. All scrolls delivered. Total distance. Variable. Noted anomalies. 2 scrolls not on dispatch list. 1 unrecorded delivery. Possible time distortion. Recommend more tea. You sign it with your courier mark, a stylized swirl that vaguely resembles a sideways dumpling. Then you tuck your brush behind your ear and breathe. The station keeper, an old man who mostly resembles a slowly molting owl, glances up from his tea. Back so soon? You smile. Depends how you define soon. He grunts, sips his tea, and slides a small wrapped parcel across the counter. Someone left this for you. You open it carefully. Inside, a scroll. Blank, fresh parchment. Crisp edges. Tied to it is a note. Next route begins when you're ready. You tuck it into your satchel, not because you're in a hurry, but because you know you will be. Historians rarely write about the end of courier routes. They record the dispatches, the notable riders, the political implications of a misplaced decree. But they forget that the most important part of any delivery is what comes after. What changes? What doesn't? You step back outside. The sun is just breaking over the hills, gilding the edges of the world. A new day, a full satchel of silence, and the long, easy quiet of a job well done. You walk over to Bean Curd, who is already trying to eat someone's sandal, and untie her gently. No hurry, you'll ride again soon, but not just yet. Wind down. 300 words. The trail winds down beneath your feet now, soft and slow. The sky has lightened into lavender, the stars tucked back behind the curtain of morning, and even the restless hooves of your old mare seem quieter now. Her breath is steady. Yours too. You've been riding a long time, through plum groves and salt flats, poetry dens and bone wind chimes, through moonlight that hides messages and scrolls that carry more than words. And now here you are, back where you started, but lighter. Like something once tangled inside you has gently unfolded. The letters have all been delivered, each one a whisper passed along the great pulse of the empire. Some carried longing, some regret, some a truth too soft to speak aloud. And you, faithful rider, delivered every one. You rode through storms, through silence, through mystery, and somehow, through time. So now, let the trail fade. Let the sounds soften. The scrolls rustling too. Sleep in their shelves, the old wind chimes clinking just once more. Let the saddle loosen beneath you. Let your breath match the rhythm of hooves now stilled. Let the ink dry on your hands, and the road rest just for now. Because for tonight, you've done enough. The empire is quiet, the messages are home, and sleep is very close now.